Three, two, one.
Well, what's going on, friends? Welcome back to another episode of the Metaverse Church podcast, and super excited to be with you this weekend. First of all, I just want to say on behalf of Goose and myself, thank you so much for listening and for watching these episodes. There are many of you who are even part of the Metaverse Church podcast Discord community, and just love being able to connect with a lot of you and just hearing your thoughts and feedback on these episodes, what you know about the stuff that we're talking about. I think what's beautiful about this is that there's stuff that Goose and I know, and we've even talked about it in some of these episodes, that there are some things that we still don't know and that we're still trying to figure out. And many of you have been chiming in on just what you're taking away and what you're seeing and hearing, and even giving some of your own feedback in to some of those episodes on some of the stuff that maybe we didn't touch upon. I know Paul James keeps mentioning in the YouTube page. There'll be some episodes that we do, and he's Goose. Paul knows a lot about big screen. Like, he says that he was birthed into VR via big screen was his wording. I love that. But he was able to give me some great insight on a whole bunch of stuff via big screen that I didn't know before. Even today, we're recording on a Sunday. We did big screen again, and I utilized the lobby space that big screen has, and I gotta say, it was pretty sweet. Like, there's a whole bunch of more nooks and crannies that you could hide into in there. That way, if somebody wanted to have a conversation, you could kind of go further off, and it didn't really distract from the service that was going on as a whole. I actually thought of you guys, like, if you were wanting to do, like, if Cornerstone was wanting to get into big screen and you weren't so concerned about like the casting features that are there, like, it was a great space just to have people gathered together, and just be in community. And so I took advantage of that insight from Paul James um, on some other additional features that big screen had. Somebody else reached out to me from Lakeland VR, actually, who was familiar with big screen, and he said to me, he's like, "Hey, have you thought about running Twitch and streaming Twitch into big screen?" Because we were talking about like the overlay, so I didn't have to keep mentioning joining our Discord and all that kind of stuff. And I told him, didn't even consider that. That's a really good idea. On top of that, I'm not familiar with Twitch at all, so I would have to get through with that. But big screen does have a Twitch feature. So I was like, man, that was a solid idea as well. So that being said, again, just want to say thank you to all of you who are participating in the conversation, because we really do. We want this to be conversational as well. Like, that's what a podcast community is really supposed to be all about. And here's the thing. Your guys' input back to us, what you're giving us as information, when you put it into Discord or you put it into the chat for YouTube or whatever else, you're helping the other church leaders who are interested in diving into the metaverse. You're helping them glean even more information than what Goose and I have. So please, please, please continue to help us along in this journey. And do know there are probably going to be tons of stuff that we are covering that we will completely miss out on. Like, last week's episode was all about Discord, and really that was like a 30,000 foot perspective of what Discord had to offer, and really just the two ways that even Goose and I see it, from like, man, this is Grand Central Station, or this is our central hub, for our community. But there are tons of more features with Discord that we didn't even get close to touching upon, and that is for sure a completely other episode in and of itself. So we'll come back around on some of these things, especially as we continue to learn it as well. But again, please continue to be a part of the conversation. We love it. So that being said, Goose, you ready for this?
Let's do it.
All right, man. So
You're gonna have to pronounce it correctly, though.
I know. Well, hold on. We'll get into that here in just a second. Let's go with this one. Goose, what are some wins in the metaverse? What are some yay God wins that you're seeing in the metaverse lately?
Yes, I mean lately it's still very much in the sphere of where are we headed. It really does feel like, with the alt space news, we're seeing a kind of a shift, a new era, if you will, and there's more and more growing optimism, which is awesome. like, right after the news broke, there was a lot of despair, but it's pretty remarkable how quickly that has turned into optimism from some of the people who had the most despair over it. So I just attribute that to a lot of answered prayers, a lot of good perspective, a lot of sort of kingdom perspective, where it turned something sad into actually something that ultimately could be joyous. And that's something that we've talked about kind of quite a bit here. But I'm just seeing more and more. I'm seeing that more and more grow and fan out. And so that, to me, that right now is the thing I'm most excited about. What I've seen as far as wins in the metaverse go.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I've even had the opportunity to hop onto a couple of different podcasts just to even talk about the church in the metaverse. And one of those podcasts was all about church planning as a whole,
Mm.
which I thought was just super cool. Just like the topic of a church planning podcast and what does that mean and what does it look like, metaverse combined. Like there's still so much excitement around this. I know one of the things, I don't remember if you and I talked about this off air or not, but one of the questions that I had was for the churches that are currently doing church in virtual reality, primarily in Allspace, with Allspace shutting down, would we see a drop off in churches in the metaverse as a whole? Or would we actually see everybody kind of disperse into other areas? And so far, I would say the primary response that I've heard is that nobody's abandoning ship on the idea of doing church in virtual reality and church in the metaverse, but they're actually looking at what do the other platforms have to offer in order for them to continue. And some of them are getting ready to flex muscles that they weren't doing in alt space just because they're being forced to try something completely different. And it's just super exciting to see that. So I'm excited to see that growing interest as well. I think God is for sure nowhere near done with a movement of the church in the metaverse. I think it is just getting started. I had a guy reach out to me. I'm over here on my Discord right now. I'm trying to remember where the conversation was at because I can't find it. But I had a guy reach out to me at one point, and he was saying he currently goes to Asbury University, where there's this big event going on. Some people are calling it revival, and just it was a regular school chapel service that has now been going on for like 10 to 12 days, something along those lines, and it's been massive, 4 hours long wait line to get in and whatnot. And so this person reached out to me and said, "Man, I would love to see this transpire into the metaverse." And I told him, I was like, "Dude, realistically, like, there's nothing that stops us. There's so many churches that are in there that we could, in any platform, get an event up and running, share time and space, and just allow the Spirit of God to move in those spots." So, it's easy to, oh man, how do I say this? I think that it's easy for people to hear the idea of church and virtual reality and just think that it's a joke. I even still at times have a hard time telling people what it is that I do because I'm like, man, you're not going to fully grasp this. But I'm a full time campus virtual reality pastor. Um, and I'm just like, man, how does that come across to somebody else? And here's my heartbeat. This is what I want. I want the idea of VR ministry to become so normalized for the church community that it doesn't feel weird to say that anymore, but it feels normal and it feels cool and it feels exciting because God's doing something, and it does. But I just think, like, when I have those conversations with people, there's still those moments where people just kind of look up at me and go, "What? What do you do?" So I say all that because, like, I'm still looking forward to the day that it does get normalized. But I just think that God's up to doing something really amazing, and I'm excited for that. So all that being said, let's talk about a word that I hate absolutely so much, not because of what it means, but because I can't say it to save my life. Let's talk
You can do it.
about anonymity
Yeah,
in the metaverse. Did I get it?
you did it. Well done.
I'm flexing for all of you who aren't watching the YouTube feed. That's such a hard word for me to say. So we're talking about that, which I absolutely love, just because um, I think it was something that I hated at first when I jumped into this, but I have come to fully appreciate um, just I don't know. I guess just the level of transparency, which is a weird word to throw with it, but the level of transparency that does come with that anonymity twice in a row in
Bro.
metaverse. So let's talk about it. So what does for you, Goose? What does anonymity mean? What does that look like in the metaverse, and why is it so important that we talk about this?
Yeah. So I mean, in the metaverse, the generally speaking, the level of information people are willing to share, it's sort of flipped from what you would experience in like the physical church. Physical church, you easily give your name and some basic info about who you are, but by and large, you don't like walk into church and say, hey, this is who I am, and here's all of my past traumas, and here's what I'm struggling with, and this is what happened to me yesterday, and this is what like we kind of put on a happy face and go on about it. And only when we have built a level of trust do we start to get into the deeper issues, and even then it can be hard. Metaverse, by and large, VR, by and large, it's flipped. Many times I have had conversations with people who share very, very personal, very often traumatic details of their life, but they will not tell me what their name is, not even a first name. Like, it's not even, oh, a full name that I can identify. They won't even give me their first name. They certainly won't tell you where they live. Many times, and I've had to try and like nuance this, because where somebody lives can be a good conversation starter, and start
Mm.
to you know get to know somebody. And so I've sort of just broken down my first question to, hey, where what part of the world are you in? And then they can kind of answer that in any way they want. Many times people will just say United States, or, oh, I'm in
Mm.
Europe, or, and then other people don't really care that much. They might give what state, or sometimes even a city. And but there's sort of a range. But many times I will even ask that question, which is it's very open ended into how much detail you want to give, and it will give them pause. I will hear a pause as they, like, you can sense the uncomfortability with me even asking that question. They are like, there's some people are just so nervous about revealing who they are, that they're just they will just stop before they will answer that in any way. So this, like, the self-identifying factors that that we normally give, that's where the anonymity comes in, and there's really no way to tell that. There's no way to, like, sort of get that out of somebody unless they want to give it. And so that's the anonymity that we talk about. Is you can be completely anonymous in a place like VR Chat or any of the other VR platforms if you want to be, and the level of detail and what detail you give is completely up to you. And so it isn't as if people aren't willing to share about themselves. It is simply they don't want to be identified. That to me that's the kind of the basic idea of anonymity in the metaverse. Now, that is what is widely true. It is not universally true. There are plenty of people that are very forthcoming with where they are, and who where they live and all of that. But it's just not as normalized as it is in physical church. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I in all the time that I've been doing this now, I've never really put this together, but there's almost a level of your traditional Catholic confession
Mm.
that's going on with the anonymity, because there's been times where people come in and not necessarily to confess, but it's that idea of like, I associate you as a pastor of a church. Here I am, this, regular person, for however you want to say that and view that. But it's like, here's my questions, here's my doubts, here's my whatever. And there's like this screen between the both of us of like, I don't see your face, you don't see my face. So it's not like we're just going to walk around in public and all of a sudden I know everything about you because of what you gave to me, because I don't know who you are unless you give me the information. And so that's where I've just seen it be super fruitful uh, for really a person's own spiritual journey and spiritual growth. Like, I think one of my favorite stories to share is I had a guy one day um, who he was walking around the environment there, like in VR and alt space. And I noticed him, and it was almost like the Holy Spirit was just like, pay attention to this one. So I'm just paying attention, and just like you would in real life, I just walk up to this individual and I said, hey, what's going on? Do you have any questions, or anything that I can help you with? First time here, all that kind of good stuff. And he was like, nope, just taking it in. I'm like, cool. Well, my name's Stuart. I'm the campus pastor here for this church. If you have any questions, just hit me up and we'll go from there. He says, cool. So that was like the beginning of the service. And then, like, halfway through the service, all of a sudden I see him just walking around the halls again, just taking in stuff. And so I just followed up with him. I was like, hey, man, just want to double check, make sure you don't need anything from me or to have any questions. And he then says, well, hear me out. He's like, I work a graveyard shift. I live in LA. I was like, okay, so you just gave me some information right there.
Mm,
Like, two big important things.
yeah.
And he goes, I've always had questions about like religion. He's like, whether that's Islam or Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, whatever. And he says, I've never known who to talk to. And because I couldn't go to sleep, I decided just to throw on my headset, and I came into alt space, and here's a church. So I was like, well, I'll just go in. And so he says, so all that being said, like, do you mind if I just ask you some questions? And I said, yeah, dude, definitely. I was like, bro, here's the cool thing. Like, feel free to ask me anything. Like, I'll answer what I know about some of the other religions. I said, but it's really not going to be a lot. But any questions that you have about Christianity, I'd love to answer those for you to the best of my ability. And I said, here's the best part. You're not going to offend me, but you're definitely not going to offend my God, because you're wanting to get to know him more. Like, that's how this all gets started. Um, but he said to me in that conversation, he was like, because I don't want to offend anybody and I don't want to offend God, I've never known who to go to or to ask these questions. And he says, especially because I don't feel comfortable walking into the brick and mortar of the church. And so I was like, dude, what a great opportunity. And again, the only information that I have to work on is his username in Altspace, the fact that he works graveyard shifts, doing whatever, I don't know, and he lives in LA. To which then I was able to, we had some conversations, and I told him, I was like, dude, we do this every Sunday, so feel free to hop in. Like, if you have more questions, my biggest encouragement to you would be hop over to our Discord. Are you familiar with Discord? Yeah, I'm familiar with Discord. Okay, so hop over to our Discord, and send me a friend request right away. And anytime that you want to like walk through scripture together, or you have questions, just hit me up on there anytime, day or night. You don't have to wait till next Sunday in order to bring more questions. Now, unfortunately, he never hit me up on that next step, but it was the fact that I can almost guarantee that the reason why he felt so bold to ask the questions that he's always held on to and has never asked anybody else before is because he had this thing called anonymity in virtual reality, that he was like, I can ask my question here, and it doesn't matter because this dude doesn't know me and I don't know this dude. So
Yeah, that's to your point, some people are intimidated to go into a church. Some people, don't. It would feel almost like a betrayal to go into a
mm,
church. They wouldn't want to be seen going into a church. They're worried about going. Like that's a very real thing, and yet they still do have the questions. And so that is one of the strengths here. Is it's just such an easy way to sort of, for some, to covertly be able to engage with Christianity where that option really hadn't afforded itself in the past. And so that's definitely a strength. You highlighted though a weakness, which is this sort of stickiness of conversations.
mm,
um, the you meet somebody in the physical church. If you can get them to fill out a connection card, they've already given their name, and like it's a lot of it's easier to make that like follow up ability in the physical church. Whereas for us, it's like, nah, I mean, if we're thinking through ways to do this, but so far none of them really have worked outside of trying to get them over to Discord. But even on Discord, it's just easy for people to disengage because
Yep.
and I'm sure you've experienced this too. What can really be jarring the first time it happens is not necessarily when you talk with somebody and they don't show up. Of course, they don't take that second step. We hope they do, and that's but we're kind of used to that. What's really jarring is when you walk with someone for a while, for a long while, and they never take that step outside of the anonymity, but you go deep with them. And this has happened. I'm sure you've experienced it,
Mm.
but it's happened with us at Cornerstone for me and Pastor Jason and Stuart. And it's happened to all of us where we will walk with someone months, and then all of a sudden they just disappear. It's
Mm.
like, we don't and in some cases it's like we still don't know what happened. Other cases we
Yep.
do, where it's like, yeah, we got to that point in discipleship where it was really time to deal with something that needed to go in their life, and they're like, yeah, no, I'm good with Jesus up to this point, but that one I'm holding on to. And it's like, yeah, no, it's time, like it's all or nothing. And they're like, yeah, I'm out. And then they just and they're gone, and there's like really no way to follow up. It can be, we're sort of used to it now, but like the first time it happened, that was very jarring to just realize, like, oh, the relationships, even more so than in the physical space, which they are in the physical space, are so fragile.
Yeah.
Relationships are fragile, whether it's family or whether it's friends or coworkers or colleagues or just people that you go to church with, whatever it may be. Relationships are fragile, far more than we give it credit for. But in the metaverse, my goodness, they're just even more fragile. And so that is one of the weaknesses of that anonymity, which is it's just so easy for people to pull back. And I guess it's just, you take the good with the bad. I don't know if that's been your experience or if you've got a solution for it or some outlook that might change that, but that's kind of one of the drawbacks that I've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, I don't have an answer to it because for me, I'm still trying to get people to take really a next step in general, other than just Discord. Like we had one guy who he gave his life to Jesus during an alpha event, which was fantastic. And that's a huge win for sure. But that's about as like our biggest win that we have thus far. Whereas you guys, you've celebrated baptisms and all that kind of stuff, your groups that you have going on that people are fully connected to and involved in. Like you guys are still, as Cornerstone and VR Church, you guys are still a pretty good few steps ahead of us when it comes to like the community aspect of doing church in virtual reality, church in metaverse, all that kind of stuff. But for sure, like we still experience that all the time, whether it's that guy or there's been a couple of Muslim believers that have popped into our events, and I just sit there and start having conversations with them, and I throw the same invite at them, like, look, you seem to have tons of questions about the Bible. Have you read the Bible before? And I've gotten a couple of different responses that I absolutely love. Like one guy was like, I've read it, but you're giving me some new stuff to chew on. Like one guy said to me, he's like, what you've explained to me is a lot different than the Jesus I've come to know. And I said, well, tell me what you know about Jesus. And by the time that was all said and done, he gave me uh, Jesus from Jehovah Witnesses, from Mormons, from whatever else across the board. I'm like, yeah, so let's try to unmuddy the water here a little bit, and let's just get to know who Jesus is based off of like the Christian belief. And I threw out that invitation to him. I was like, friend me on Discord and let's walk through the Bible. And every time that something seems off to you about the Jesus that I follow, then we can stop and have that conversation. But I've also had like some of our Muslim friends that have popped in, and I love this one. I gotta say it, like this is probably the most frustrating conversation I've had in virtual reality up to this point. Even to the point that like some of my team members were like messaging me during the conversation, like, "Stuart, you need to calm down." I'm like, okay, I'll calm down. But Yeah, my biggest thing is like, if you're going to ask me a question, give me the opportunity to answer it before you start interrupting me and asking another question, which is basically what was going on during this one. But um, I asked the guy, I was like, "Well, have you read the Bible before?" And he says, "Yeah, I've read it 2 or 3 times." I'm like, "Perfect." I said, "What stops you from reading it again?" He goes, "Oh, I've read it 2 or 3 times. I don't need to read it anymore. I know what I need to know out of it." I was like, dude, that's a pretty bold statement, because here I am, a Christian believer, and I read through the Bible every single year or listen to it every single year. And I was like, bro, I don't know anything about the Bible at this point. Like, I've barely scratched the surface on everything that God wants me to get out of there. So if you're able to learn the entire thing and you know everything that the Bible has to offer in 2 or 3 readings, like, I should be learning from you. But I said, more likely what's happening is you don't even know a single thing about what's in my holy text. And so again, I throw out the invitation and wasn't accepted, but it's just amazing, because there is a lot of that. There's this, I got my questions, and then I never see you again. And it's just like, okay, God, it's not my job to make things grow. I'm either planting or I'm watering at this point, but you got to make it grow. So, and that's kind of what I hold on to with really that weakness of what we're talking about today. So,
Yeah. So I'm curious, from because you think through systems so well, from a movement from the anonymity to connection. Well, two questions really. Do you think it's important to to get people to take that next step, or do you think that it's like, no, if they want to, they can. If not, we'll sit in that anonymity and mine that for everything that it's worth. I don't know if that didn't come out the right way, but you know what I mean. Or, and then I guess the second question is, if you do think that it's no, we have to make that connection, that like, the outside VR connection. um how do you envision it happening, or are you doing it? Like, what is the actual mechanism that you could see working to move people into that space where we're like, yeah, we're now connected in a way. Because I'll say here, this is the way I'll ask it is, we've definitely had people where actually we realized, like the discussion in the chat was like, oh, there might be a problem for them, where we're like, oh wow, this would be a situation where we would be reaching out. We would be, if we were in the same place, we would be doing a home visit. We would, there were some
yeah,
serious situations where we were like, oh my goodness, like, we need to contact a family member to make sure they get help, or, you know, and we realized, we're like, we have no clue where this person is. Like, I don't even know what state they live in, let alone being able to, like, phone somebody that they know. And so it started us thinking, like, really ought to start moving people to the point where we would have contact info in a way that if we had to, we could get in touch with them or a family member or something like that. So I'm curious, from your perspective, whether or not that's a viable goal. Have you thought about it? Are you guys doing that in any way?
yeah. So I think it is a viable goal. I think that it can be achieved. I think that realistically, I think it's the platforms that we currently have to use. They don't advocate for those kinds of responses, right? Like, each of the platforms are designed for that. I will only be known to the extent that I want to be known by somebody else. You and I've had this conversation, like, um, just gathering information from people outside of just trying to send them to Discord. Which, even there, like, you might not get information from people on Discord as well. So it's not like even Discord is the answer, because it's not. Discord, for the most part, would just be a better next step. It'd be a step in the right direction, anyways. Um, but I think that we can get there. I think somebody's going to end up having to code something like this for the most part. that fits in with any of these platforms that we're looking at. Because like, I, I'll, here's one that we did that kind of worked, kind of. Back in the early days for us, when we were first getting started, we were doing Bible reading plans church wide. So we launched like, I don't know, 3 or 4 versions of the exact same plan, and we invited people alphabetically who were friends of Lakeland Community Church on the YouVersion app. Well, I wanted to figure out, how do I bring that into our virtual reality experience? Because we were talking about it, we stream everything. So if we stream it and we're saying on the screen, we have to figure out a way how to bring that in and give it as an option. We had people from our virtual reality campus that were reading alongside the same reading plan as our in real life attenders. And I would say that that was probably our quickest way of gathering any kind of information, because if somebody had the YouVersion Bible reading app, we were then getting their real name and
Yeah.
some, or we're getting more information anyways than what you would just get through the platform or Discord. Um, but still, somebody has to be willing to take that next step in order to do that, and it was awesome. Um, but like, I think for us currently, for churches in metaverse, like the way to think through that is, what are what are other systems or platforms or tools to your disposal that you know somebody's going to want to be a part of because they love being a part of your community, or they love what it is that you're doing, that those tools automatically require the basic information that you weren't getting, because they'll follow you over.
So, so philosophically, you don't have any problem with some of the church's offerings being, for lack of a better term, kind of walled off to anyone who isn't ready to take that step. Is that kind of like, is that kind of the thought?
Like I don't have an issue with somebody who's not ready to take the next step.
Yeah, right. So yeah, I'm just wondering, like, or yeah, I guess that would be sort of like a predicate in order to take part in something. For example, like let's say, what would you think if I said, you can only volunteer if you have connected on that personal level. I don't know what that means. Maybe it's a name and a phone number and that's it, or maybe it's
Yeah.
a name and an address, or something. Now we don't have that rule. I'm not saying we do that. I'm
Right.
just thinking through, like, we've talked about that sort of a thing where, so something that the church offers, again, for Cornerstone, something that Cornerstone offers, whether it's a particular group or again, volunteering, or something, is sort of walled behind the prerequisite of, if you want access to this, we need to be in closer community together. Now, again, we haven't done that yet. We've talked about it, but we haven't pulled the trigger on that yet. And I'm curious for you, do you see any? I mean, me personally, I actually don't see anything wrong with that, depending on what the offering is.
Yep.
But I'm curious, what do you think?
Yeah, I would say um, it all has a time and place kind of thing. So, like, we wouldn't. I think one of the things that my senior pastor and executive pastor love is like a serving sheet that we fill out. Has names like Net Guy and Blood Drained and whatever, as like the names of the people who are serving in our experience. Um, so to that, it's just like, no, you didn't have to take a next step with us in order to do that. We didn't need your information because I'm connected with you in some way, whether that's Discord or, you keep popping into our environments. What we were running for a while, and we, I say hijacked, but we were given permission from Life Church to do this. Actually, it was an idea that simultaneously came up between Life Church and ourselves, which I thought was really cool. But we made these holographic MetaQuest stickers. and it was just, and we had this wall. Yeah, I think I shared it with you, right?
Yep.
Um, it was this wall that was, if you were wanting to be known in this environment, if you wanted one of these stickers, we would send you one. Our way of saying thank you for joining us at Lakeland VR. Just fill out this information. And a part of that information, part of that was we would get your name, we would get your phone number and an email address, I think, well, and I guess a mailing address. And then we would send you one of these holographic stickers. The beauty of that also was we asked for a picture of your avatar and a picture of your real self if you felt comfortable enough to do it. And that way we would post this up on this metaverse Lakeland Meta family wall so you could see the avatar picture and the in real life picture of the individual. And it was a way of kind of stripping away some of those barriers, but that was
Mhm.
walled, right? Like you wouldn't get this unless you gave us this kind of information. But that was really like our our attempt of trying to take things to a deeper level with people who are coming. Is like, if you're willing to give us your information, like we want to be able to be in your corner to pray for you and to be of any kind of help that we possibly could be. So I time and place, some stuff it doesn't even matter, but some stuff you would use it. So
Yeah, that's good.
so but all that being said, like 36 minutes in, and I would say you and I both see like there's a huge win to the idea of the oh, I lost a goose. I haven't said it in a while. Anonymity. Okay, I got it back as I said it out loud. Okay.
You got it.
Folks, you have no idea how hard that word is for me. It's so hard. Synonym
We
and
really we
cinnamon.
really should have been running the video earlier so that everyone can hear just how badly you butchered it before, but you're crushing it now. So that's all that
Dude, I
matters.
feel like what I feel like is I feel like the little kid from Finding Nemo. Or maybe it is Nemo. It's like, I live in an anemone. And I feel like you're just waiting to sit there and say, don't hurt yourself, kid.
No,
Um,
you're good.
anyways,
You're good. Keep
I
going.
digress. Um, but what I was going to say is, like, for us, based off of this topic, like, we see where there are huge advantage points that you wouldn't see in real life. And of course, there are some weak points to it as well. So,
I yeah, I mean, ultimately for me, I do love it because it's different. It's access that we just don't get in the physical church, and so for that reason, I love it. I love it that it's raw, and you just never know who is walking in and what they're going to tell you, and from a pastoral standpoint, and a pastoral counseling standpoint, if that's your thing, you can't beat it because you just microwave a counseling relationship that would take months into like 5 minutes, and it's not quite that simple, but you get access that would take you so long in such a short amount of time. Again, the longevity of it and seeing the growth and the help and all that, that can be a little bit frustrating if they, again, like you've pointed out and we've all experienced, is that you get one session with them and then they're gone. But I don't know, I never feel like it's wasted. And when we all are constantly talking about planting seeds, because that's all we when we have to in the metaverse, that we have to hold on to that, because there are so many like isolated interactions that we have, that we just have to hold on to that scripture we're talking about. Like, I don't know if I'm planting or I'm watering, but I know I'm doing something and the Lord's going to use it. And that to me is where the anonymity is just so unique and awesome, is in that, where you get these really, really potent interactions where you come away saying, Lord, let that seed blossom somewhere along the way. So yeah, for me,
yeah.
I think the strengths far outweigh the weaknesses of it, mainly just because of the uniqueness of it.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree with you. So we'll bring this episode to a close. But as you were even talking, Goose, I think I came up with a really good conversation for next week. You ready for this?
Go.
I'm going to build out uh, a sheet, questions, and you and I, we're going to go through what we think about, because you guys run counseling in virtual reality, right?
Hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So because you do that, there are probably church leaders right now, and this came into my head because I've been asked this question before, but there are probably some church leaders right now that are probably asking, like, just that idea of like, can you viably do counseling in virtual reality, and what does that look like? Like, can you do counseling for depression? Can you do marriage counseling? Can you do divorce care? Can you do the question that I got asked? What happens when two members of our virtual reality church want to get married to each other and they live in two different places and the church is in a different place? So I think there are some logistic side stuff like that people are going to be like, what does this mean, Basil, and can we do it? So I'm going to try to work out a list for the next time that you and I record, and we're just going to pop through. And to be honest, listeners, hear me out. We might not have the answer for it. And what we might give you might just be our opinions of whether or not we think it's acceptable or not. Okay. So try not to
Yep.
shoot the messenger in the process or anything like that. We're strictly going to go off of, is there anything biblically wrong with this? Is there anything lawfully wrong with this? And we'll go from there. But that being said, well, hey, you're a lawyer, so you would actually have some of the insight as well.
Perhaps a bit. Yeah.
Maybe. All right, cool. Well, we'll bring this one to a close, everybody. Again, on behalf of Goose, myself, thank you for listening and a part of this community. Again, please be a part of the conversation. Drop some comments there into the chat fields. And I try to do a really good job of hopping in there and liking, hearting, and responding back to some of the comments that are in there. Hop over to our Discord. The link will be in the chat notes as well. But as always, if this is a blessing to you, please be sure to subscribe, share this with others, leave a rating and a review. It's all those kinds of things that our lovely friend Algorithm loves to see in order to promote this out even further. But that being said, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Be blessed.